Greetings, everyone. My name is Bart Berkey. I'm the founder of a company called Most People Don't. And this is the live version of the podcast. The podcast is called Most People Don't, But You Do. We have stories and conversations about people that I meet, random people that I meet sometimes, special people that I meet always, that are doing what most people don't do. They're setting an example. They are coming up with ideas and actually making them happen. And they are also volunteering their time. In a few moments, we will be having Alex Sheen. He is the founder of Because I Said I Would. I changed the format on him about an hour ago. I know he's on the West Coast, and let me just see if he is almost added to the stage. He's almost added to the stage. Device is not yet connected. But while I'm waiting for him to get situated, I wanted to read a little bit about him. So Alex started this company because I said I would, and it was sparked by the loss of his father. And he'll share this story with us here momentarily. But what is really cool, I had the pleasure of meeting Alex. Gosh, this was a few weeks ago. He was in Washington, D.C., speaking to a different group. What I thought was just amazing is that he wanted to take his time to be able to meet with whoever was able to meet with him. He would fill his lunches, he would fill his dinners, he would fill every single opportunity to be able to spend time sharing this message of Because I Said I Would. As personable as you could well imagine, very busy, but certainly focused on doing what he said he was going to do. Let me read a little bit more about him. I'm going to add him to the stage. And there,
Can you hear me all right?
yes, sir. Alex, so glad that you were able to join us. I was telling this story about how we initially met, and I started to read a little bit more about you. And if you don't mind, I'm so glad, but let me finish reading a little summary about you, and then we want to jump right into questions. We're talking a little bit about how you were spending time whenever you're traveling, meeting as many people as possible. But this is what I wanted to read. Alex is one of the world's foremost experts on accountability and commitment. He is a 5-time TEDxTalk speaker, author, podcast host, internationally recognized humanitarian, and of course, the founder of Because I Said I Would movement. His work has been featured on the Today Show, Good Morning America, The Steve Harvey Show, CNN, Fox News, and many other programs. That is all speaking that I'm going to be doing about Alex. But Alex, so glad that you are joining us, and can't wait to learn from you. So first of all, welcome to Most People Don't, But You Do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it, Bart. And thank you so much for meeting with me and just learning more about the charity, having your daughters from Hawaii and the traffic in DC and NATO week and all the things that come with getting into the city. I really just appreciate your interest in resiliency skills and mental health habits and what it takes to help others in need.
Well, and as I shared with so many people before, I was not going to miss an opportunity to meet you. And suddenly you have set a great example, not only for me and my business, but for so many other people by being so giving. And that's really what I wanted to kind of get into, Alex. Your propensity of doing unique things and coming up with this idea. When we had lunch together, you were talking about, your mother is proud of you. Your father certainly would be proud of you. But there were other things that you could have been doing to be able to have a more comfortable living. That your brother, is telling you, well, if you did this on your own, you could be making so much more money, and you could be buying homes, and you could be going on vacations all over the place. And so really the question is, Alex, why? Can you start off by telling us the story, how it originated? And then I really want to get into and have our listeners learn the why you were doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it all comes from how my father acted with me and my brother. My dad was a pharmacist for 25 years in a hospital, but he was the average guy. No one would go home and talk about my dad. Oh, Alex Sheen is great. I don't know. He's just a decent dude, but kind of run of the mill in many ways, except for this one thing, which is that he was a man of his word. If he said he was going to be there, he just showed up. And I don't know how your audience feels, but it seems like a lot of people just don't do that anymore. 5 minutes before we're supposed to be there, or even 5 after, we we were sent a text saying, "Oh, I can't make it," and people don't keep their promises very much. And I think that's more of like a canary in the coal mine type of thought, right? Like, because they said, "Oh, promises, like that's a humanitarian cause." Like that wouldn't resonate with most people. But if you said, "Oh, what does it take to keep promises, though?" Well, you would have to have self-control. You'd have to hold yourself accountable. You'd have to be honest. Okay, things like that. What kind of value does that have to society, though? So I really think that this is why it resonated with me so much. This quality of keeping promises from my dad. And as you know, Bart, unfortunately, because I said it is the title of my father's eulogy, my father would be diagnosed with stage 4 small cell lung cancer. And on September 4th of 2012, he passed away in our home. I reflected on this thought of a promise. I was asked to write his eulogy, and I created what we call a promise card. Just a 1 cent piece of paper. Said, because I said I wouldn't, on the front and the back, there's nothing else. You write a promise on the card, you give it to the person you're making that commitment to. When you fill that promise, you earn the card back. It was just a way to say goodbye to my father. But I offered to send 10 cards to anybody, anywhere in the world, to anybody, no cost to anyone, which is the dumbest financial decision I've ever made,
And I have a whole stack of it. I have a whole stack of them. Yeah, right across from where my desk is right now. And I've been using them. So thank you for that. Yeah. Now, look, getting back to your father's ability to be able to, it aligns so much with, and you have inspired me in a sense. The name of my company, our company, most people don't. Most people don't keep their promises. So there's a lot of alignment. Most people don't do what they say they're going to do. Most people don't have self-discipline. Most people don't take care of themselves. Most people don't show up. All of these different elements. And what I'm trying to do, and I'm learning from you, is how can we encourage people to take action? They have an idea, they know what they should do, but how can they actually implement it and do it? But the question I have for you, Alex, is, seeing that and having spoken about that at your father's eulogy, did your brother and your mom also get that same sense of that's what your dad stood for?
Yeah, no, I think that was definitely true. I mean, my dad was far from the perfect person, but he had this way of honestly, it wasn't motivating himself. He wasn't someone who would honestly listen to a podcast like yours or read a book like ours. He wasn't like binging motivational content. He just knew how to drag himself through life, to be honest with you. Like, he came from a place of poverty, being an immigrant to our country, and getting himself through pharmacy school and master's of business administration, and just kind of trudging through those early jobs before he ever got there, working at Bob Evans and in a mine and all kinds of just random jobs, tough jobs. Living in an apartment with 6 people and 2 bedrooms. It's just like it gets to this point where, he said, well, whether I like to do it or not, it does that is really of no consequence. I have to get this done to carve out my version of survival. So I do think that my family, understood that my dad had this other mode, where the rest of us, and understandably, including myself at the time, was like, yeah, if I don't want to do it, I have to figure out how to want to do it, or I might just not do it. And he just, that didn't even cross his mind, a sense of duty, obligation, and adherence to his word was, more critical than his preferences.
What you had shared, he drug himself through life. Not easy, but he was pulling and dragging himself despite what he maybe preferred to do. He knew what was the right thing to do. Did you have this sense of learning from him, Alex, at a younger age growing up? I know, it really hit home during the eulogy, of course, but were you learning from him at age 9, at age 10, that, oh my gosh, my dad's a remarkable dude?
No, honestly, not at all. I was a brat, like most children are. Bart, I know you're a dad, and you probably had those moments. But you know, my dad, in his literal obituary, I wrote it with him because he was terminally ill and why he had consciousness. I said, Dad, would you like to do this? And, you know, we were writing it out and he jokingly said, well, I want you to write in there that, that I refer to myself as the bank of dad, you know, because like anytime we needed something, we just went to the bank of dad and asked for withdrawal. So, you know, I think that I didn't really take to that lesson. I took for granted that reliability, and I honestly, in some ways, appropriately interpreted how he behaved, and also misinterpreted how he behaved. So, what do I mean by that? Like, my dad was the angry Asian dad, right? I don't take some kind of stereotypical movie trope or something like that. It's like he's that guy, insanely high standards, no emotion, never cry, et cetera, et cetera. And with that, you know, when he would get angry. And I think a lot of my family that part of him we remember.
Right.
But in trying to understand my father, especially towards the end of his life, is like, well, you know, why? You know, I went to business school and they said, okay, here's Toyota Production Systems 5 whys, root cause analysis. You know, you just ask why 5 times so you get to the root cause. You know, it applies to a lot of things in life. So I was kind of doing that with my dad. And you know, like, why does he get angry? And part of that root cause was like he honored his word and everybody else didn't. And he could not understand why. You know, wouldn't you just do what not only you said you would do, you had the resources to do, you had the time to do. Like, my dad was angry because he had never got numb to what a lot of us subconsciously have accepted, which is that people don't care.
Yeah.
And that's not everybody. So I'm not trying to be pessimist like that, but yeah, sometimes people don't honor their word, follow through, simply just because they don't think you're important enough. And that's hard to say out loud, but in cases can be true. And that upset him, I think, to know that we were willingly doing this, or even subconsciously doing that. So, you know, that's one of the things I think my family, you know, would you know, how they understand this message is like, oh yeah, that is why he was upset.
Yeah, because the frustration, if I'm this way and I see other people not doing certain things and not keeping their promises, why can't they? And Alex, you'll appreciate this. I just got back from a kindness conference last week and I spoke to a grouping of travel advisors, and the most amazing breakthroughs were happening. But we were talking about simple things like see something, do something. If you notice that something is wrong, just don't say something, actually take action. So I was driving yesterday, just had a little errand to run, and I see this car kind of pulled off the side of the road, almost in the median. And I see a woman getting out, and I'm thinking something is wrong, whether her car broke down, whether she needed help. So I put on my flashers, I pull off to the side of the road. No one else stopped. No one else stopped, first of all. I went down the window and I said, do you need help? And she said, no, I'm okay. And I saw what she did. She stopped at an awkward place. There was a box turtle that was trying to cross this 4-lane highway. She stopped to pick up this turtle, to carry it across the street, to put it into the woods. Yet 10 people, 20 people, 30 people, other cars pass by. That could be frustrating, or we could use it to say, we heard this story, Bart and Alex were talking. Next time I see a turtle, next time I see something that I can do something about, do you feel, and again, that's just a quick little story of, right, it can be frustrating. What message would you share to people that are frustrated when other people are not honoring their promises? What would you share?
Yeah, I really think that it's almost a internalization of character values in that compass of your life. So what do I mean by that? Like, when we if we were to ask the audience, you know, Bart, you know, what are your top 3 values you make decisions by? Go, right? Like and you're almost phrasing the question with a tone and speed where it's like, unless you have it memorized and that's how you actually live, then it's not an answer, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people grasp the straws and say, well, of integrity. It's like, and then you say, okay, what does integrity mean? And they're just like, well, it means, and that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who are like, and when I make decisions, I say, is this honest? Am I being accountable? Am I being compassionate? Am I using my self-control? Running your decisions through a filter that you have memorized. We call it a code of honor in our resiliency skills programs in schools, prisons, and things like that. But the point I'm trying to make here is that part of the frustration on that thought of this bystander effect of people just passing someone in need is almost a frustration because it's a connection to the value of popularity. Now, it is also a connection to the value of impact, and so I'll get to that in a second. But I try not to get frustrated by the thought that people are or not doing anything. Like, popularity is not how I'm going to gauge what is right for me, right? I want to say, what did I do, right? And the fact that all this other stuff exists, does that have a real consequential effect to a personal health, family, community, our country, timeline of history? Yes, of course. It cannot be denied. And that's why that frustration should exist. But in some ways, I do think this thought of popularity bleeds into other parts of our lives. And we say, well, why isn't everybody doing this and that? And blah, 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 blah. And things start to only matter if everybody's doing it. I just try not to spend too much time in that space, and then just kind of dig that one extra step of saying, well, I'm frustrated because compassionate. Am I being compassionate? Right. And because because I said I was universe, right? Thinking of locus of control. There's things I control, there's things I influence, there's things I have no influence over. And you could say there's more layers to that, but I kind of just stay away from things that I can't really influence as far as not being as far as affecting, honestly, like, my mental health is overused sometimes, but like, I still want that negativity in my body. I just can't do anything about it. So think about this.
Right. No, lovely. And amazing that you say that, Alex. And what you are doing actually by taking the initiatives that you are doing, by learning these values, by sharing with it, by teaching resiliency, you are essentially to heal your father. Do you realize that? You are creating solutions to heal your father. And even if your father is not with us on this earth, you are helping to heal your father. And thank goodness you've done this, because you're not falling into the same, I don't want to say trap, but you are finding solutions for yourself as well. You're not the frustrated kid of a frustrated pharmacist, right? So
no, I mean, the thing is people break promises and water is wet. It's like, it's something that just happens. And I remember watching a School of Life video on YouTube, pretty decent channel, and a lot of stuff in resiliency skills. Mental health is not a perfect science, but one perspective or philosophical view of anger is that the person who's angry is actually in some ways an idealist. That they are so optimistic that, oh, this is going to go right. Of course, every time I'm going to find my keys, right? Of course, my kid isn't going to misbehave. What, of course, all these things, they're supposed to happen exactly as planned, right? Because I'm an optimist, right? I'm an idealist. And when they don't, I get angry every single time. You know what I'm saying? So like, certain things like that help us reframe and understand not only our own frustrations, but those of others. And then just like one final thought, I'm like, what everybody else does, and like, popularity of things or the bystander effect, people passing, I'm starting to develop a belief that there may not be any other action in this world than individual action. And I mean that almost like somewhat literally, meaning like even in groups of people, it's like it's only still one person at a time acting. Like there's no monolith. It's like it's yes, there are economics, yes, there are laws, yes, there are a lot of things that influence, but at the end of the day, you peel it all the way back, and it's every single one of us did or didn't do something. There are no other things to do. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
every action is only individual action, and that's why I think it's one of also a neglected humanitarian sort of pillar, right? We want to change laws. We want to create miracle cures, miracle technologies. And of course, we need all of those things. But like we ignore how integral personal responsibility is to moving all causes.
Yeah, personal responsibility, individual values. And as you were sharing about your values, it reminded me of something I believe Socrates said. Before you speak, put it through this filter. Is it kind? Is it necessary and true? What a great way to live. And you're putting it through the values of honesty, integrity, values, independence, all of your values before you're saying it. And Alex, when you talk about things are up to the individual. So lessons for our listeners, and as I shared with you before, this will go out to over 100,000 individuals and hopefully more because of your name and because of what you're doing. And we want the word to be spread. How can they're learning from you, but is there a piece of advice that you can say, how can you remember to do what you're going to do? Is there anything that you teach or that your team teaches as a takeaway? What could one person do now to honor what they say they're going to do? One piece.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a little different angle to this, but it'll come back to that one thought. When we look at resiliency skills and mental health habits, there are lots of different methods, right? We could talk about anger management, stress management, time management, the 4 types of self-control. We could go through a litany of things that, all these books and psychologists say will help. However, we don't know exactly what the efficacy of any one of those things would be for Bart versus Alex. So let's give the analogy of any sort of medicine, right? Like at a hospital. There's going to be a standard normal distribution of the efficacy of that medicine with human beings. So for some people, it's going to, for a lot of people, they're going to be in the middle of that bell curve. If we remember from 7th grade, the middle of that bell curve, it's going to work for a lot of people. That's great. But then we're going to have some people where it has no effect. That medicine has no effect for them almost at all. It's like almost like they never took it. It's weird, but they're like this little outlier piece. And then on the other side, there's people who it's like they're allergic to it. This is literally poison to their body for some reason. And that bell curve kind of shows the effectiveness of this medicine. Well, it turns out that if we're talking about cognitive reframing or deep breathing exercises or even living by a code of honor, whatever, we don't know how well each one of those things works for Bart, works for Alex. We are all different human beings, right? So in that thought, you have to be your own experiment to some degree, right? You have to say, well, deep breathing works for most people, but for some reason, I've given it enough sample size. I didn't just quit immediately. I tried it, didn't work for me, move on to the next thing. Journaling works for a lot of people, didn't work for me, move on to the next thing. You have to be your own experiment, and you have to have that kind of patience in order to find the formula that is your set of resiliency skills that work for you. So I think the last way I'll phrase that is a brute force attack, right? In software, which is a universe I came from prior to this, if you're trying to break into a system, there's one old school way of you just try every password that exists. If it's 4 digits, you type 0000, enter. Didn't work. 0001, didn't work. You keep doing that until you trip across the right answer. Well, in this scenario of our own resiliency, we don't actually know when we can look at our parents and the biological predisposition, our culture. There's certain things that you could suggest that, and studies, of course, that's a great place to start. But at some point, it's like, yeah, we got to kind of go on our own journey here of a brute force attack. And that's what I would say to your listeners is, it's just a part of that process. And then one extra piece, just as a bonus, and people on podcasts don't talk about this very much. I have 5 TEDx talks and I've never said it because no one wants to hear it. It's not clever enough. It's not some silver bullet, but diet, sleep, and exercise. Diet, sleep, and exercise. That determines your level of energy and I'm not like saying this as an out. I'm saying literally get up off the couch, like my beagle, if you can see her back there. Right? You to get up off the couch to do that thing requires energy to stay focused and concentrated, even in front of this desk. Takes a level of energy, and diet, sleep, and exercise are foundational. But again, not clever enough to write a book about it, apparently.
Yeah, no, and it's so cool. The simplistic ways, Alex, you have a different approach. Your stories are going to be different than my stories. And individuals can learn from your stories. I learned from having lunch with you and understanding what motivates you and your time boxing, and that you do try to take time to make sure that you're exercising, and that you love having your pups. And it's hard because you're traveling and you are scheduling so much, because if you don't spend adequate time talking about, because I said I would, in between presentations, then you have to work twice as hard the next time in front of your stage of 4,000 to be able to convince them to begin to take action and think differently. So all of these things goes back to the individualization, as you had shared, and then the simplistic things. Try things, try diet, sleep, and exercise. Learn stories from people that are doing research like yourself, like me. Pull down the ones that you think are going to resonate with you. And then, as you had said, do the experiment on yourself. It's not going to be a one stop or one shoe fits all type of approach. You're going to have to try things to see what is going to encourage me to take action, what is going to encourage me to feel better, what is going to encourage me or motivate me or inspire me to do what I say I'm going to do. Is that a good summary of what we learned so far?
Absolutely. And in that patience, you got to realize that like things that work for you on one day will not work for you on another. I mean, we are too complex, unfortunately, to have such a simple solution. So you're understanding that is the process. That is how it works. And go week by week, phase of life. Maybe things that worked in your 20s don't work in your 40s. It's just how it works, and we don't have to be frustrated by that, right?
Yeah, don't need to be. Now, and I guess the whole thing boils down to, and I say this with certain groups, 99% of the groups that I present to, and you'll probably find the same thing, want to get better. They're not comfortable with just remaining as they are. They want to get better. And I came up with this statement: easy to be, but better to become. If individuals believe that it's better to become, then that's when they're going to want to learn and take and exercise and experiment. Sadly, there are probably some people that have given up. Is there anything that you would say to the folks that don't think that they can get better, that they can improve?
Yeah, I often come back to Bureau of Labor Statistics number, 75.1%. So 75.1% of all Americans do not volunteer a single hour in an entire year. When we talk about that bystander effect bar earlier, the number of people who actually make the world a better place, it's not like there's a bunch of like evil people out there in these massive quantities. I actually don't think that's entirely true. What I think is like there's just a lot of apathetic people that maybe aren't taking care of themselves, their families, their community, a cause they care about. It's right. This gray middle part is actually the real problem. So that the people who are taking care of their physical health, mental health, that they're helping their communities, their families, they volunteer. These types of people are limited in number. And so one thing I often say, and is in our code of honor, is the world is in great need, and so you are needed. I have volunteered probably like 75 or 100 different organizations in the last decade. And even in causes that you think like, oh, a children's hospital, clearly like there's going to be it's a children's hospital, like birthday celebration. There's going to be people lining up at the door to help. Well, I don't know if you've ever been to one then, because it's not entirely like that. It has cases of success where, of course, we see numbers on social media, because that's those highlight moments that get shares and likes. But a lot of times when it comes to doing the right thing, there's not very many people who show up. And I don't, again, mean just charity. I mean, just even our own individual little take care of our family type of approach to life. So people who are getting discouraged, like your efforts don't matter, it's the only thing that matters. Mahatma Gandhi once said, whatever you will do will be insignificant, but it's very important that you do it. Because again, the only action in life is individual action. It's not, it doesn't get bigger than that. I mean, it adds up, and that's the only way. Is that we all have to believe that this insignificance, when zoomed out, is the only way it works. The only way it gets better. And that's the switch I would try to flip for those people who feel like it doesn't matter. And I'll give one small example and end on that. But like, there's a pretty long stretch of road in Cleveland on the lake shore, and there's just trash all over. I once made a promise to to pick up trash for 24 hours straight, right? So I walked about like 41 miles or something in that 24 hours. And I just picked up trash. I picked up trash along a 3-mile stretch both ways, and I did it all and by myself, right? There's trash there. I mean, because you can see expiration dates. Things are 10 years old. I did it all by myself. The thought that one person can't do things that matter, it's like, sometimes it's like a perspective of like, well, have you tried? Like, I mean, because I've seen lots of people who made a huge difference. And it doesn't have to be some stuff like some 24-hour whatever. It's like, I could have easily done that a couple hours a day over the course of months, and I would have accomplished the same thing and by myself in a community of surrounded by tens of thousands of individuals. That trash sat there for 5 years. And there are lots of, like, that's an analogy for lots of parts of life that can get better. We just have to try.
Amazing. Alex, pick up the turtle. Pick up the turtle. Pick up the trash. Individual components matter. I have one last question if you have just a few moments left.
Yep. I got a jet to the airport. But
Yeah, Alex, the last question, two questions. Are you making promises to yourself? You are always giving. You have donated millions and millions in the majority of everything that has ever come in to be able to help others. Are you making promises to yourself?
Yeah. The thing is the way I live, I would not recommend to other people, and not everybody should live the same way, right? I don't think everybody, I don't know, should serve their country overseas. I don't think, it's not for everybody. The things that I don't ever feel guilty about is diet, sleep, and exercise, right? I feel guilty about, how I spend my free time and things like that. But those always come back to that thought that I need energy. And I do believe that in society, because of just the formula that's always going to be, there's going to have to be some people who do extra, right? A very wise man once said, and then this is Spider-Man's uncle, Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility. But I don't know if you've ever remember sitting at home as a little kid, looking at television, see athletes and billionaires or whatever, and with all this power, and they're doing the wrong things. And you said to yourself, maybe, well, if I ever had that, then of course I would do it the right way. Well, it's time to pay the piper. I don't need to enjoy this life in a way that may be common. I need to help people who are in deep suffering. Our camp helps grieving families. We work with the mothers of murdered Columbus children, people who have seen their children drown or die in car crashes. It's like there's the amount of pain that I've had conversations with is not something that I feel comfortable with. And so as much as the joys of life, of course we should all have, and I do. So, we don't have to always be too much, but I don't want that joy as much as I want to eliminate the suffering. It isn't any more complicated than that.
That goes back to a card that I treated for this conference, and we start out kindness. K stood for certain things, and I and N and D, or the E stood for erase you. And Alex Sheen, that is just a great summary of who you are. You have erased your own needs to be able to eliminate the suffering of others. You have erased your needs for monetary gains to be able to donate for others. You're helping high schools and colleges and prisons. You have the camp that you're assisting individuals with, people that need it. You are not sitting by as a bystander. You are the one picking up trash. You are the one traveling the country, earning revenue and giving it back to people that need. Last question, Alex, and I'm going to reference because I said I would.org to learn more. How can our listeners help you? Last question.
Yeah, there's many ways to get involved. We're looking for some new board members. If resiliency skills and mental health habits interest you, then we're looking for not only board members, but professional volunteers who can help with like little mini projects, right? Really kind of in a box, but that would help the charity. If you and your corporate group would like to come do a volunteer project or a 92-acre camp and retreat center for grieving families in Ohio, just east of Columbus, there's that option. We actually do corporate retreats as well at our leadership development retreat center. And in that, 100% of that funding goes to the charity. Obviously, financial contributions, I wish it wasn't a part of charity, but it's like, I don't know how else to help these people. There's resources are required. So starting a Facebook fundraiser, sponsoring a grieving family at $1,500. There are a lot of different ways to get involved, but the best way to get involved is to be a person of your word, to look back to the shelf of promises you have not kept and give it another shot. If you did that, that would be playing.
Amazing. And I would encourage individuals again to go to becauseIsaidIwould.org. Alex, you are a remarkable human being. I'm so glad that we had the pleasure of being able to meet in DC. I will continue to spread the word of what you are doing. If individuals can volunteer, think about it. If people are kind of stuck in their woe is me, a great way to get out of your own head is to be able to volunteer, to do things to help others. Alex Sheen, please be safe. Please make sure that you are taking care of yourself, because I know you are one busy gentleman. I see that arm. I know you're exercising. I know you're boxing, but make sure you also are focusing on great diet, sleep, and exercise for you, because we need you around a long time, my friend. But I'm so grateful, and thank you. Safe travels.
Awesome. Thanks, Bart. Have a good one. Have a great.
Thank you.